Foul demon, face the vengeance of the Moon Knight.
Tsunami Studios.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. And we're doing another MoonWatch video, that's right. Something I love doing on this channel, talking about Moon Knight. I say it in every video I talk about him. He's my favorite comic book character, my favorite literacy character. I could talk probably for hours about Moon Knight and never get bored or ever get tired. I mean, maybe after the 7-hour mark, it'd be like, well, let's take a quick break before we jump into potential stuff for the movie or the TV show. But in this video, that's what we're doing. We're talking about the TV show. I hinted at it in earlier videos I've done on the character. Maybe I will link it, maybe I won't. We'll see. I have a pitch that if I ever got the chance to walk up to somebody from Marvel Studios or Kevin Feige himself and have a chance to be like, hey, I know what to do with Moon Knight in the MCU. Here's what I think we should do. This is what I would say. It is a 4-season pitch for a television show. Now that we know he's going to be going to television, I think it's a great time for me to talk about this concept I had. So a few things right off the bat. I'm going to be operating under the assumption that Oscar Isaac will be playing Mark Spector. Now, we don't have an official confirmation on that. And when we do, I think I'll do a video talking about all like the people involved in the process, like the set designer and where they're filming and like the director and all that. When we get a confirmation on who will be playing Mark Spector, I'll talk about that. But for this, just assume that it's going to be Oscar Isaac in the role, which I think is a great choice. The other thing is, it's all speculation. I don't have any idea what's actually going to be happening in the TV series. This is just a fan's perspective on what should be done or where I'd take the character if I had the opportunity. And at the same time, too, I know the MCU is very interconnected. So with each of these shows and each of these seasons, you could definitely do something between them in other movies or TV shows. So I wanted to kind of set it up. There's one in particular I don't know if it would work like super well, but it could still be done. But like in between the seasons, so like if season 1 ends, before we get to season 2, he appears in like a Midnight Suns thing or a Ghost Rider thing. That could be done before you get into season 2. I kind of planned it to be like that. There's kind of one where I'm like, oh, maybe not, but we could see what happens there. And that's just what I wanted to tell you guys. Like there's just that's pretty much it. You know, those are just the things that to be wary of when I'm talking about my pitch. Those are the couple of things that just like, yeah, he could be in other places. I'm going to say it's Oscar Isaac, and I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's actually kind of exciting that a character I am so passionate and love so much is going to be going into a television series, and I don't know what it's going to look like. I think that's kind of cool. It's something I wouldn't be expecting. Because this is one of the things I love about Moon Knight. You could do a lot of stuff with this character, and there's been a lot of stuff done with this character that are different and unique. And that's one of the things I love about him, is because every writer or artist or anybody working on him has a different interpretation of how to make that character cool. You go into a Spider-Man movie, you pretty much know the beats. You go into a Hulk movie, you pretty much know the beats. You go into a Moon Knight series, it could go anywhere from just like an insane mental patient all the way to like high convoluted Egyptian mythology. That's pretty cool. Not everybody can say that. I think it's a really fun thing to see. So let's get into it. Here is my pitch for a 4-season arc on Disney Plus for the character of Moon Knight. Let's start with season 1. Now this is the season I'm just calling the beginning because that's what it is. This is where you'd start with it. Now, I wouldn't do flashbacks. I want to say right away, I wouldn't do flashbacks. I would do one episode in the middle of the season that is the flashback. It's the origin of Mark in Egypt with Marlene and Peter and Bushman and how that whole thing comes to be. That's what I would do there. You don't need to do flashbacks, seeing it like kind of, I don't think Arrow style works for Moon Knight, where we jump back and forth all the time. I think we just start in the modern day. Here's this new vigilante that's kind of crazy. I would open it. I actually thought about the opening. I'd open it with just Mark in a new apartment. People are calling him Steven, and he's just unboxing, like a crate gets rolled into his apartment. He's unboxing this statue of Khonshu. And then we slowly see that there's a figure on his shoulder, like a little bird with a giant skull that's talking to him, and nobody else can see it. So, in my first season, I say you do a lot of classic Moon Knight stuff. You introduce the 3 identities, Stephen Grant, Jake Lockley, and of course Mark Spector. You introduce your side characters, your Frenchie, your Marlene, your Gina, Crawley. You introduce all those people. That's where you start with it. I don't think you need to get too crazy in your first season. All you have to do is show the differences in what this character is from other people in the MCU. You keep them street level. You don't need to go an over-the-top thing, because we'll get there. We'll get to the over-the-top stuff later with this character, but when you were first introduced to him, you want it to be kind of like that simple, basic level that a lot of people can understand. So I wanted to keep it calm and easy. The main villain of my first season is going to be Bushman, just because I like that idea that this mysterious, maybe drug peddler or somebody comes back to New York who Mark knows about, and now he's out for vengeance over what happened to him. And then as the season progresses, we get back to the flashback to see their history and the vendetta that Mark kind of has for him. I think that's a really interesting idea, and it allows it to kind of do like a different story where the villain isn't out for revenge or vengeance. It's the hero who's out for revenge or vengeance. And it could obviously be something paralleled like The Crow, but I don't want to go that dark. I think in this first season, you keep the tone pretty mixed. He can kill, he can get bloody and do some dark things, but I don't want to go super crazy over the top just yet. We are establishing this character as a new force in New York City. He's a little different from everybody else we've seen. Not a lot of people know how to respond to him. He's a little more on the detective side of stuff too. I don't play into Mr. Knight right away. In this first season, I think it's just, here we go. Here's the story going on here. It plays into a little more of the supernatural elements. I do throw in a couple of the side villains. I think you could throw in Stained Glass Scarlet. I think that one works really well in terms of like a narrative storytelling, because you could see the relationship maybe progress between her and Mark, leading to an eventual betrayal. It could play off stuff that with Marlene. I don't really want to go straight into like they're Marlene and Mark are like love trot lovers who can never really catch a break. I don't like that a lot. I think just right now, Marlene would be my hey, I saw you come back from the dead. I know what you are. I just want to make sure you're okay because you made sure I was okay. That's kind of more how I'd play that angle. And I also think you throw in Werewolf by Night, just because that's a classic character from the beginning there. And I could set it up as something like this. You could have Jack Russell be like a main character as the story progresses. Maybe he is betrayed by Bushman and becomes this werewolf creature, and you set him up to be a force that Mark has to fight before he gets to Bushman. You could have the classic Werewolf by Night versus Moon Knight fight, which I think could be a really fun thing to see. And then we'd also establish the bigger world of Mark Spector. Of course, we see him, getting the helicopters or the planes and the car. I would introduce the limo right away, actually. I think you could introduce the limo, and that could be something really cool to see. So that's kind of where my first season is. You don't get too crazy into the over-the-top stuff with the character, and you slowly delve deeper into the mind of Mark Spector. The overarching thing of the season is, at the beginning, Mark and Khonshu have a pretty good relationship. Mark is on board with Khonshu's plan, pretty much. But towards the end of the season, especially when it comes to the stuff with Bushman, does Mark slowly start to grapple with the idea of what Bushman is and what Khonshu wants from him. And that's why I end this season with the thing that's going to make people go, oh shit, this character is not like anybody else we've seen before. And that's where you cut off Bushman's face. Now, I like The Bottom. I think it's an okay book. Not my favorite moment and not my favorite Moon Knight run. But I think that's a very pivotal moment in the character of Moon Knight, because it's finally giving him the chance to be, he's not Batman. This is a monstrous character with a dark and terrifying future ahead of him because of the actions he does here. So I end season 1 with the death of Bushman and Mark killing him. And this is kind of the first time where it goes, something's wrong in Mark's head. He's suddenly no longer in super control of everything he's doing. That is the end of season 1. Come season 2, I'm calling it The Bottom. This is the season where things start to spiral out of control. Kind of just we're leading to a big event that we don't really know yet. Mark is no longer feeling super safe in his own head. The actions he is taking are confusing and different, and he's starting to lose grip on reality itself. He no longer knows the difference between Jake Lockley or Stephen Grant, and the people around him are starting to notice this. Marlene's starting to distance herself from that because she's getting a little afraid of what Mark's going to do. And, even Frenchie's like, I'm not going to pilot for you if you keep acting like this. And this kind of plays into the idea that now he needs to present himself as a different identity so he'll be more respected in the public. And that's where Mr. Knight comes in. So now we have more than just a couple identities. We got a bunch. We got Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, Jake Lockley, Mr. Knight, and Moon Knight, all different personalities working inside that head that don't really understand each other super well. And at the same time, too, Mark's going to a lot of dark places because Khonshu is manipulating him. I want Khonshu to be the overarching villain of this entire show because that's what it should be. If you had the god of a monster, if you had any god inside your head constantly telling you what to do and who you are and how you are to, like this disciple or this son of them, it's like, you'll do great things for me if you just listen to what I say, and suddenly that mind goes darker and crazier than you. You're going to lose the little remnants of your humanity, and I think that's something we should play up here. So Mark is having this conflicting argument with the character of Khonshu in his own head, and it's leading to darker actions happening in this season. Mark's willing to kill more people in more brutal ways. He's willing to take a lot more damage. I think you could maybe set it up that there's like a side villain that we've seen in a previous movie that comes in to fight him. I'd love to see it be Taskmaster. I don't know if that would ever happen, but I have this vision that Taskmaster is like trying to do all these different moves to counteract Moon Knight, but he's just so brutal, he's willing to get stabbed if it means it's taking him down. I think that'd be a really cool thing to see. Now, with Bushman dead, my overarching villain of this season would be an interesting parallel to the character of Mark Spector, and that'd be Black Spectre. I would have Carson Knowles be the big villain of this season, and it'd be more like going opposed to Mark in different ways, being a different kind of vigilante who's kind of more brutal and hardcore on the streets too, but also in terms of like a political setting. I'd have him run for mayor of New York. I think that could be a really cool angle to play, and just show his arc of like, hey, there's so much corruption happening in this city, in these streets, that I want to do something about it, but for some reason I can't, and there's something going on here. So that's why he adopts the persona of the Black Spectre, kind of as like an anti-Moon Knight task force in that self, that like, this guy is doing a lot of bad shit, we have to stop him. And I think that's just a really interesting in this point in Mark's career, that there's somebody kind of as messed up as him doing something in a position of power, that now he has to counteract against that. And again, this season I think is darker. It shows, hey, this is the character now. He is at rock bottom. The rest of the show is going to be about building him back up. I think this is a very fascinating angle to take with the character, and I really like it. Now, where do I end this season? I end this season in a really interesting and weird place, I feel, and that is we are seeing Mark Spector struggling to kill Black Spectre. I don't think he straight up kills him. I think we end this scene in like a weird idea of an explosion happening. It could be like metaphorical explosion or a literal explosion. I think you should leave that up to audience interpretation, where Mark is in a coma, and when he wakes up, he's in a mental hospital. Now, is that what's really happening, or is that just something that is happening in his head? That's where I think you should leave it. We don't get any resolution as to see if like Carson is actually dead. We just move on into the next thing. Now, like I said, there was one season where I don't think you could tell any stories between that. That's season 2 to 3. Because in this time, there shouldn't be anything happening. We see Marcus in the hospital at the end of the second season, and we don't really know what's going on there. And in season 3, I'm calling this the trial season. This is where it's like, hey, do you guys remember that really good run from Jeff Lemire of Moon Knight? That is this season. So we had the first season showing kind of the insanity pursuing in Mark. The second season shows it's bubbling up and it bursts at the end. In this third season, we are entirely inside of Mark Spector's head. This entire season is inside his own mind. It's all the characters we've seen from previous seasons in the mental hospital with him, and it's him trying to escape his own mind. And like that series from Jeff Lemire, it escalates from being in this weird mindscape of a hospital into like, oh, this is Khonshu's doing. He is testing me in some sick fucking regard. I am going after him, and I'm going to find a way to kill him. So this entire season, to me, it's going to different locations with Mark struggling to find himself in these different places. It's like walking through a door and suddenly you're no longer Mark Spector in the hospital. Suddenly you're Stephen Grant on the set of a movie studio producing a Moon Knight movie. You're going through another door. Suddenly you're in space combating these evil things, you know? Just like that book. I think that book really is a good place to show you. That's where you could end the character of Moon Knight. Is having him battle all of his own internal demons, which are people we've seen in the past and in these interesting ways. I love this book. I preach about this book all the time when I talk about this character. You'll see me mention this book more on this channel later. And I just think having that for an entire season where we're finally seeing Mark has lost something in his head. There was a snap inside there that he's no longer in control of himself. He is full on lost in this world, and he doesn't know if it's Khonshu doing this or if it's his own subconscious that's telling him to go these different places. This, to me, too, is where you kill some of the personas. Because going forward, I love the concept of Jake and Steven and Mark. I love that concept. But going forward, I think you have to have a more streamlined Moon Knight after you do this over-the-top mental state thing where we're like going to all these different places. We're fighting these mummies and these gods of death in the Egyptian world. And we're seeing this like toll it takes on your mental brain and how it's like, is any of this real? Is my God, is my father in a way testing me to be a better son? Is he showing me this world that I don't understand because I'm going to always be this avatar who's always going to be broken and defeated, who can't control himself, so now his God is punishing him? Is that what we're going to see? And when it comes to the end of that, if you guys haven't read the Lemire run, it ends with, spoiler alert, Mark killing Khonshu. Now, am I going to do that? No, because Khonshu's the villain. I think it ends with Mark crippling Khonshu and suddenly he is back in control of his body. And so we say goodbye to the personas of Jake and Steven. Now, that's a really interesting place to end this season. It almost feels like it could be a final season of the show. And if I had it my way, if this wasn't connected to anything in the larger Marvel Universe, that's where I'd end it. Because I don't think for the life of you, you're going to get your emotional beats for Moon Knight in a bigger ensemble piece. You just don't. Nobody has really been able to write the character in a team book super well. There's been a few times where it's been okay, like West Coast Avengers back in the day was fine. Secret Avengers, I think, did it for the most part because that was kind of a darker team. But you can't really find the emotional beats of that character when he's on a team. That's why I've always been like, well, let's shove him into his own area here where we can have all these moments. So my big climactic kind of like payoff is the idea that Mark Spector is finally back in control of his sanity and his own mind. Now, cut to season 4. In season 4, like I said, it's probably not what I would do if we weren't connected to a larger universe, but because we are, this is the season I'm calling The Redemption. Now, what this one is, if you guys, I've talked about it numerous times on this channel already. My favorite Moon Knight book, and the first one I ever read actually, was Vengeance of the Moon Knight. The first run of that book, the first, I think, couple issues, I think it was 6 issues, shows me that's where you end this character if you want him to continue in the universe. So my idea for Vengeance of the Moon Knight is kind of different than the actual book. It's not Jake Lockley. In the book, it was Jake Lockley. In this show, to me, it's like, hey, he's Mark Spector. The Moon Knight is returning to the realm of the living. His ties to like Frenchie and Marlene and all these other characters, they're not there anymore. They've moved on with their lives. They've moved past it. And this kind of introduced some more of the modern storytelling with stuff we see in modern Moon Knight. So I do introduce in this season, I think Marlene has the kid of Beatrice. I think Beatrice is there. Mark tries to figure out how he can deal with that, thinking maybe, oh, was it Jake that did that? And why did Jake lie to him about having that kid? I think you play up that angle. I also, instead of having the Hood be the person to resurrect Bushman, I have it be the Sun King. Now, I think if you want to, just kind of like in season 2, how Black Spectre is a great parallel to Mark in that stage where he's losing his sanity as a vigilante. If you want to have a great parallel as a villain in the last half of the story, where it's like, hey, you are the avatar of a god, it's Sun King. I'd make him straight up villain, none of the other stuff that we've seen of him. He is the avatar for Ra, and suddenly it's like, is Mark going to let himself listen to the voice of Khonshu in his head that he can... Now he's able to control, he's able to push away the voice of Khonshu and be his own person, but is he going to listen to the voice of Khonshu in order to fight the Sun King? And in that's going on, he does resurrect Bushman because it brings back this idea that this is the trauma that Mark has experienced in his life. And it all starts with Bushman. Now that threat is back, and maybe Bushman's more afraid of this man now because of it. I think there's a really interesting story to be told there. And this is Mark's redemption story. This is no longer the vigilante we've seen cutting off people's faces or killing people. This is no longer the insane man who is trapped in his own mind fighting these space werewolves or producing a dumb movie. This is a hero now. This is the story of Moon Knight going from being the mentally scary threat that we've seen in the first 3 seasons The one that the larger Marvel Universe would probably be like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't need to have this in my life. To being, hey, there's actually a good guy in here who is striving for redemption. He's actively seeking out to be a better person, to just find that penance to be the ultimate hero or the character he could be if he wasn't having these issues that he's had his whole life, of these mental breakdowns, of this dissociative personality disorder. If he didn't have those, this is the person he would be. I end this season just kind of vaguely, just because we're obviously going to have him go into the larger Marvel Universe. He pushes away the thoughts of Khonshu. He's able to help Sun King instead of actually having him become a villain or like a killed off. I think it's like, hey, you can get help. I know how to help you and all that stuff. You have him reconcile with Marlene. You have him do all that stuff. And suddenly it pays off. And that is a pretty consistent story throughout 4 years of a television show. You see the start of Mark. You see his descent. And you see what happens when he gets to that descent. And then you see his redemption into being a better character. Now, I have thought about this a lot. And I'm really happy I finally had a chance to tell you guys this story. Like I said, I'm going to leave it pretty open-ended because I'd assume if I were given the chance, right after season 4, I'm launching into Secret Avengers. Because that's where the character fits best if you want him in a larger Marvel universe. Would I do it? Probably not. I might maybe try to team up with Tigra or something, but hey, that's just what I do. Just to kind of bring it all back, season 1 is the origin story / we're starting out to see the villains in this world. We're starting out to see Mark kind of losing his mind. Season 2, Mark is fully no longer in control of his mind and he fights the Black Spectre, leading to the ultimate defeat that causes him to go into season 3 inside his own mind, trapped in a world that he doesn't know if he's controlling or Khonshu is controlling, which leads us to season 4, the final season, that is the redemption arc of Mark Spector, where he is trying to be a hero instead of a dirty vigilante who kills people and cuts off their faces. So that is my pitch. That is my pitch for a 4-season arc of Moon Knight. Now, I want to know what you guys think. Is this interesting? Did I do something cool here? Did I give you a full arc for a character that we don't really see a lot in the MCU? And if so, did you guys like it? Did you enjoy what I had to say? Should I come back and talk about more Moon Knight stuff on this channel in the near future or the far future? Please let me know. So thank you guys so much for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, all that good stuff. And stay tuned for more Moon Knight content because it will be coming. And yeah, once we get confirmation on Oscar Isaac, you can damn well be sure we'll be talking about it. Anyways, have fun, stay safe, good luck.